Hello, beautiful people. Today I'm talking about the Anunnaki and the emissary's take on it. I'll tell you all about it on the other side. So somebody commented on the YouTube channel and they asked a question, and the name is, excuse me if I'm saying this wrong, Ariel Gel Mazi, okay? And the person said, what does the emissaries say about the Anunnaki? Okay, so I thought, I don't think I've ever talked to them about that. I will ask them that question. So they said, in their inimitable fashion, that's not really our thing. We're not experts on all of that. But they did say, from what we're aware, they did surely exist, were their words. They did surely exist, but not on the timeline that we are on. That's what they said. You remember before they talked about all of these old texts and books and stuff like that that are there, that they're kind of imported from other timelines, and that there's little clues to help us to understand as we go through our journey that this is not all that there is. And so they said that the Anunnaki was a real thing, but on a different timeline. But they said this, right at the beginning of the conversation. They said, the story of the Anunnaki is no more incredulous than any story, any of the stories. And I was thinking, what do you mean by that? It's no more incredulous than any of the stories. And then they explained it a bit later on. But what they said is that there has been manipulation. On all of the timelines, there's been manipulation. For good and for bad. Like beings getting involved. Beings that should and beings that shouldn't get involved and manipulate stuff. And they were referring to the Anunnaki with that. But they said, these are just stories written into timelines. Right? And this is what they were talking about. They said, don't be put off because something is fantastical. You know, something that people talk about that's fantastical. And they said it doesn't matter whether it's fantastical or not, because it's only a script. Right? And what they were saying was that all of our timelines are just scripts that have been written. They're just plays that are being played out. And the idea of the scripts, they're written in such a way as to allow each and every one of us to have the hero's journey experience, which is good, battles, dragons, monsters, and then treasure, and then finding our way home again. Returning to God, I suppose. And so they said, there are many, many different stories and there's no reason not to believe them. And what they give me was the idea of, you know, if we watch a film or a play or whatever, many times in the film, the story is fantastical. It's very fantastical, you know, to the point of not being believable. But they said that if the actors are very good and they play the role very well, you are quite happy to suspend that knowledge of, hang on, this is just a film, and immerse yourself in the reality of what's happening. If the actors are good, right? And I've watched many a film where the acting has been spectacular, and you believe everything that's happening, you know. And I've watched films where the acting has been shit. And no matter how believable the story, you just can't believe it. It's like, yeah, I'm not convinced. They said, when the acting's good, we believe it. When the acting becomes wooden, we stop believing. And this is exactly what is happening now. And I believe that maybe in every timeline the same thing happens, where people start looking at wooden acting, right? When we look at our world now, the acting it couldn't be any more wooden. It couldn't be any less believable. There's just nothing that you know, how hard is it to find somebody who sounds genuine? And I'm not talking about our world, but in this weird world in which we live, everything seems to be forced and pretend. And so people are starting to see that. We are starting to see this wooden acting. And it's the wooden acting that makes you wake up. Okay? This is what's happening. People are seeing it. They're looking at politicians thinking, and I know I mentioned Rishi Sunak, but you can fill in any gap. Joe Biden. Watch him. And you say to yourself, is this real life? Is this real life? Or you listen to a politician being asked a question. And they do it in the Senate when they're talking to people. They go, yes or no? Did you blah, blah, blah? And they aren't able to answer that question. They cannot say yes or no. They're not able to. And they keep asking them over and over again. Rishi Sunak gets asked a question. And the answer's very, patent. It's an easy answer. He never ever answers it. He goes off into some weird world. And this is what's happening. That we are starting to realise that this is a play. That this is just a script. It wasn't like that before. When I was a kid, politicians were real. Right? And they weren't. They were horrible and rotten, just as they are today. But they were good actors. Or, for whatever reason, the storyline and their lines were written well. I believed everything when I was a kid. I believed that these people were real and they were actually doing a real job. And now, it's like, it's in your face, isn't it? They are the wooden tops. They are the wooden top actors. And it's painful to watch. It's starting to get more and more painful. I don't know how you feel. I mean, I don't watch mainstream or whatever. But when I have the sad experience of having to watch something, even the news and stuff like that, it's painful. It's like watching a B movie, not even a B movie, sometimes a C movie, like the worst movie that you could possibly watch. And I'll tell you which one that would be in my mind. When I talk about the worst movie that you could possibly watch, I read the book, The Celestine Prophecy. It was fantastic. And then I watched the film. And that was like an F movie. That was the worst thing that I've ever seen in my life. That is my experience of looking out into the world at these so-called people who are managing things. And so what's the end result? The end result is that when the vast majority of people see that this is a really bad acted play, it's the end. It's over. And I think this is what this cycle's all about, is that we come here, we immerse ourselves and we believe everything. And then we get to a point where we realise that it's all a big pile of shit, that it's just a script, that it's just a game. And it's in that moment that we wake up, and it's in that moment that it ends for us. And so it's going to end for everybody when they get to that point and go, well, that isn't even real. It's not real anymore. I hear loads of people saying that. It's just not real. It's not like watching a real person. Yeah, and many of them aren't, I don't think. So there you are. Anunnaki definitely happened, but only in the script. Only written into a script. And that doesn't mean that they're not real at the time, but it doesn't mean that everything is just scripted out. We are, you are, I am. We're just scripted out. And I believe that we wrote our script before we came. In how much detail, I don't know, but I think pretty detailed. This is what I'm going to do. And this is the point that I'm going to wake up. I don't know, can we write into our script when we wake up? Or can we only write the important things that would likely wake us up? Maybe. And maybe that's why we have to keep having the same lessons. It's like we write the script and go, right, here I would like to wake up. But if I don't, I'm going to write the same lesson and again. And if I don't, I'm going to write the lesson and again. And if I don't, I'll just keep repeating it. And then if you don't learn your lesson and then you die, that's when you've got to come back and do the same thing again. Who knows? I don't know. But Anunnaki, fascinating story. If you don't know about it, it's definitely worth a read. And it definitely opens up your perception to where we came from on another timeline. Okay? So there you are. I hope that's answered your question. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. But that's the emissary's take on it. I love you all, and I'll speak to you all later.